have you on, and all of you who are watching the recording later. So, welcome. My name is Dr. Marcia McFee, and I am so excited about being with you for the Worship Planning Retreat. And that's exactly what this webinar is about. It's a Get Ready webinar. I have been doing these retreats for over 10 years, 11, maybe this is my 12th year. I'll have to do the math. But it is always such a wonderful experience of being with you as you plan your year, what 2019-2020 liturgical year will be like, and dream about the spiritual journeys that you will take. So this webinar is a Get Ready webinar for those of you who are already registered for this retreat in Oklahoma City coming up very soon. Some of you will be live on site, which is always a lot of fun. It's great to be part of the energy, to be participating in the examples that I will be giving you for every part of the liturgical year, not to mention the bling that we have planned for you. So I'm very excited about the bling that you will get if you're there live on site. Some of you will join us through live stream, and you have registered for that. Some of you will be in the moment with us on live stream, which is very exciting. I love that. Jen will be chatting with you in the chat box during the live stream, during the sessions, to take any questions, comments, that kind of thing. And I'll be chatting with you as well on the live stream when I'm not actually on the stage teaching. So during the work times, I will chat with you as well. Some of you are on here because you are not registered yet, but wanted to know more about what the retreat is. And so you've come to the right place. This is where you'll get an idea of the layout, of the time, and what we're going to be doing in it. So I've done this retreat every year, as I said, for the past 10, 11 years, because I know the difference that it makes in people's lives to have a plan laid out and to do that in the company of lots of inspiration and experiential learning. We have people who have come to these retreats and have made brand new friends, and they're still friends 10 years later. We have people who come to these retreats and they come every year because they know that it's such a wonderful environment to get inspired and to get planned out and to really discern what is the right spiritual journeys to have throughout the liturgical year in worship at their church. So not only does the retreat expand your own love for this vocation of worship planning and ministry, but the actual planning that you get done during the retreat allows you then to expand your own spiritual journey throughout the year. Because instead of scrambling continually, season after season, oh my gosh, Advent's almost done, we haven't even thought about what we're going to do at the beginning of the year. By coming to this retreat, by engaging in this, you will know exactly what you're doing. And part of your team will already be working on it in Advent so that, you're not scrambling. And when you do this, you get to deepen your spiritual journey in every liturgical season. You actually get to have an Advent Christmas. You get to actually have an Epiphany. So you actually get to have Lent because you're not continually working on worship. You get to actually worship deeper. So I know the difference that it makes, and that's what my ministry is, helping to make a difference in the lives of pastors and worship teams so that you have more ease, more fun, more depth of spirituality through the act of designing worship, not only leading worship, but also in the act of designing worship, that feels like a deeply spiritual journey as well. So everything in the retreat is geared to that purpose. We will be not just talking about worship, but we will also be worshiping in moments together, even as we explore examples. It will feel worshipful. It will be worshipful. So if you aren't registered yet and you decide that you want to, I've got the URLs. Let me just pull that up. The URLs of where you would do that on the screen. The WDS.event/planning retreat. That's if you want to come live, and we still have a few spots left. We kept overfilling, and having to cut off in the retreat centers we were before in the previous years. So we're at a church this year in order to allow more expansiveness. And so we do have some spaces available if you want to come live. And also the URL wds.event/livestream is where you go if you'd like to sign up for the live stream. And Jenna's going to put that in the chat box. So during this webinar at any time, if you want to go ahead and sign up for that, go ahead and do that, because right now we have a sale going on until Friday. You can get a big savings, $195 for 16 hours of instruction and all the recordings. And that comes with 1 month of access to Worship Design Studio, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. But that ends Friday. So go ahead and, if you're thinking about doing it, go ahead and go to that. Oh, it should be /stream, Jenna says, not live stream. Okay, thank you, Jenna. So after Friday, it goes up to the individual price, which is $350. So you want to make sure that you get in on this. Now, if you are somebody who's already signed up as an individual and you'd like for your folks back home to have access during the retreat, then there is a special link that we sent you. Don't sign up under the live stream, this special, because you get an even better special because you're already coming. So we sent you an email. All right. So friends, I'm going to give you an idea of what we'll be doing at the retreat so you can plan what you're bringing. That would be nice, right? And if you're coming to join me live, and if you're live streaming, you can make some decisions about where you will do this. If you're doing it live with us, some of you may be just doing the recordings later, but if you're doing it live, you might want to think about where you're going to do it and whether you'll invite others to do it with you or you do it on your own. We have some teams coming because those are pastors that love to bounce ideas off of people, and that's part of their creative process, and others who are coming on their own because that's a way for them to concentrate better. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. So friends, the planning retreat is 3 days, starting Sunday night through Wednesday noon. So all told, 3 days together. And what we have is about 16 hours of experiential learning and ideas for every season and guided help to do your planning. So every session I'm going to be presenting, steeping you in the season, and I'll say a little bit more about that in just a moment. And then I'm going to set you to working. You're going to have time to work actually in the room where we are, or you can go, St. Luke's church is really big. And so there'll be places for you also to go and get some quiet, maybe go in the chapel and design, whatever you want to do. So every session will be that interplay of me hopefully inspiring you, giving you ideas, giving you information, and then you actually going and making decisions and getting some work done so that you can take home some very concrete plans. You'll get many uninterrupted hours of actual planning and getting concrete work done. And I've been very specific in planning this retreat that you get that time to actually work, because this is different than some other retreats that I have that are skills-based retreats where all of the sessions are information and not really a planning retreat, but I really want this to be a very concrete planning retreat for you. And so you actually have plenty of time to sit there and decide and get some work done. So by the time you leave, you are going to have plans in the works for the year. All right, so I mentioned this before, but those of you who are not Worship Design Studio subscribers already, we're going to be giving you a month's access to Worship Design Studio so that you can draw on the resources for the retreat that are in there, specifically some of the work that I've done around the theology and history and work I've done thematically with Revised Common Lectionary and non-lectionary, as well as looking at some of our examples of the Worship Design Studio series. These are all to give you fodder, to inspire you, to give you a ton of ideas. I am not invested in whether you decide to do your own series or whether you do our series, but our series really, when I began it, creating these 12 years ago, they were meant to be sort of examples or models for how you can do sensory-rich worship. So whether you actually use those series or not, what they're going to do is show you ways that you can create sensory-rich worship. If you're wanting to up your game in the sensory-rich department. So you will have access to that, and we will be helping you get in there and access all of the amazing resources in there. So here's a couple of things that people have said about the retreat in past years, and I bring it up to you, those of you who are going to be joining me, because I want you to sort of get in the mindset for what this can do, not just at the retreat, but long term. Someone said last year, this jump-started our year perfectly and got the whole team excited and on board. So one of the things about including your team, or even if you're coming by yourself or doing the live stream by yourself, going home and having those recordings afterwards, is if there's something that I presented, say in the Advent Christmas Epiphany session, that you really want to share with your team because you want them to get the, not just you telling them about it, but them getting to see it in action, you're going to be able to do that. So whether your team is there with you or on the live stream with you or looking at it later, you're going to be able to share with them in a way that's going to jumpstart this excitement about working together. Our mantra in the Worship Design Studio is plan together and plan ahead. And there's so many good reasons about why we plan together. And I'll be Sunday night will be sort of our foundational work around why do we plan together? Why do we have a system of planning that we can count on, a timeline that helps us have more ease about it. It helps our collaboration. So I'm going to be laying that foundation on Sunday night, but I want you to start to get in the mindset that even if you don't have a worship team, you actually do. And I'm going to show you how to sort of blow away the stereotype of what a worship team is, and how you can get concrete help from people, even if they're not trained, even if they're not coming to meetings every month, but we match their passion with a task that can be very concretely helpful to you. So I'm going to give you some ideas about how you get people excited, get them involved in really helpful ways that just really excite them as well. The second quote, I felt, I left feeling so relieved to have a plan and know how to work that plan once I got home. And so I want you to leave this retreat feeling really relieved. Again, it is my ministry to help you get processes and ways of doing things that make your ministry more vital and more alive and full of more ease and spiritual depth, because I know worship is not the only thing that you do. And so I want to give you the gift of being able to enjoy and love, even more than you do now, the act of worship design, and know that it's one of your favorite things to do in your ministry. So relief, that's what I hope you'll go home with as well. So start to get in that mindset that if you're anxious about your ministry, if you're anxious about the time, if you're exhausted, right? So you might even be thinking, oh, do I really have time to do this retreat? Believe me, you have time, because it's going to save you time throughout the year. Okay. So getting away. I've got a picture of the church up here. It's a beautiful setting, beautiful church. These are dear friends who are staff at this church. They are so excited to have us. My Jenna and my event coordinator just got off the phone with their coordinator, and they're putting all the details in place, and it's just going to be wonderful and hospitable. So getting away, if you're coming to Oklahoma City, is a wonderful thing to do because it helps us to immerse ourselves in the moment, right? Now, if you're doing the live stream, I want you to also consider immersing yourself in the moment. Whether you're doing it live with us or in recordings, I would love for you to consider that you're doing a retreat. So instead of just saying, oh, I'll just turn the computer on and watch it during my day here and there, which you could do, but I want to invite you to consider giving yourself the gift of going away. Now, whether that is a place in your house that is the most creative, inspiring place because you love being surrounded by whatever it is, or if it's somewhere else, even finding yourself a place, a retreat, a room at a retreat center or Airbnb or whatever it is. Maybe it's a parishioner has a cabin by a lake, whatever it is. Just make sure you have internet if you're going to join us live. So just think about how can you immerse yourself and really give yourself some concentrated time. Experts say that when we immerse ourselves and give ourselves concentrated time, that it actually takes less time to be more productive than if we are putting it in the midst of a lot of other things or leaving it and coming back to it. So we're actually not as good at multitasking as we might seem. There are some things we can do multitasking. I am a multitasker, but I know that it's not the creative, discerning process. I need some immersion and concentration for that. So consider that, whether you're, live streaming, doing it by yourself or with others. So let's talk about that. Will you do it on your own, or will you work with a team? Now, some of you have registered your team and you're coming as a team, and just the fact of traveling somewhere together, being somewhere, staying somewhere together, that is going to solidify you, bond you as a team, even just that much. But actually experiencing it together, and being in the company of other teams is so inspiring. So I'm very excited for you. And those of you who have decided to come as a team, you discerned that working with others in this visioning stage is the way that you love the creative process, bouncing ideas off of others. Some of you have decided to come on your own, pastors, and that is a valid decision, especially if you are, if you go inward to do your creative process. At least if you're visioning and you need some solitude to help you discern, that's what you're going to do. I can tell you that we will be sitting, those of you who are coming by yourself, will be sitting you with other pastors who have come by themselves, so that you're not in the midst of somebody else's team process. And you can choose to, I've had many people who came by themselves actually choose to bounce ideas off of somebody else who came by themselves. They've made new friends and they've found somebody they really resonated with. But then I've also had people who come and they sit at their table for the session, but then they prefer to go to a different table by themselves or to somewhere else in the church to work solely on their own. So, but, it all depends on what helps you have the most creativity. And I really want you to think about that before you come, so that you are sort of prepared to know that there are different ways of working. And you may switch ways of working in the midst of it. Even those of you who came with a team, you may need to have some alone time to sort of do some work. So you might decide, in the first 15 minutes, we already know, we got so jazzed by this example that Marcia gave that we know what we're doing for this season. So you just say, okay, we're going to decide to do this. And it may be that then musicians begin to work on their own and just make lists of things and write down ideas, and visual artists, whatever it is. So stay open to the creative process, bringing whatever it will, and you'll have a great, great time. Okay, so I will immerse you in every season of the year. I will set the stage, so to speak. Literally, we'll be setting the stage that is there. We will have different visuals each session that go with the liturgical season. We'll be literally setting the stage, physically and metaphorically, for you to get decisive and creative. So I am going to give you a ton of ideas. I am going to be giving you examples, and mostly that is so that you can then see what's sparking for you. There may be something that I say that you go, oh my gosh, my community is dealing with that right now. This would be perfect. Let me explore this avenue, right? So that's part of the steeping process, is just so that you can bounce things, sort of get a gut feeling by bouncing off of what I'm doing. So let me tell you that on Sunday night, this foundational session that we're going to have, we'll have dinner at 6 and then at 7 to 9. It's no heavy lifting. You're not going to be doing any planning that night because you will have traveled that day. And I know the brain space for a lot of folks that night is not huge, but you'll just be taking in some really interesting things. I'm going to talk about why it is that the liturgical year is such a wonderful way to look at our human journey, because as long as we've been humans, we have been doing rituals, and early rituals were about seasons and food and survival and coming of age and procreating and death, just life stuff, right? And actually, the Christian liturgical year also deals with life stuff. So we'll be talking about why is it that humans have this need for narrative and ritual and symbol, so that we can sort of ground ourselves in why it is that we do this work and how important it is. I'll be talking all through that sort of human history, through our Judeo-Christian tradition and why and how those developed, but also still that we continue to find ways to ritualize our human longing. And this is how I come at the liturgical year, is that we all have yearnings and longing, and the liturgical year is a beautiful way to organize that and go through the spiritual journey of our human longing. And so I'll sort of set that out on Sunday night. I'll also talk about why I believe creating in series is a good thing. And what I want to say to you right now, and you've probably heard me say this before if you've studied with me, but series are not antithetical. They're not the opposite of using the lectionary, a lectionary, because there's several lectionaries out there now. Series is just one way to take the text, if you are using specific text from a lectionary, a way of putting a lens on it. How do we look at this year, right? So if you're using Revised Common Lectionary, it comes around every 3 years. Okay, we've seen these texts before, but what is the lens? What's the angle? What's the particular angle this year? And we're going to talk about how that is really a combination of who we are, what's going on in the world, in our community, and in our church, and the call of God, God's message. What are we feeling in our spiritual journey right now that we need to address? So series is, and I will be giving examples of Revised Common Lectionary, Narrative Lectionary, and non-lectionary. And so there are a lot of different starting points, and I honor all of them. I am not a purist in any of them. And certainly don't exclude any of them either. So we'll talk about why to create in series, but the number one reason why to create in series is because the only difference between a rut and the grave is the depth. And so sometimes we get in a rut of what I call plug and play worship. And that happens sometimes when we don't take the long view. We don't say, okay, over the series of this time period, we're going to go on a very specific spiritual journey so that this sticks with us. This is a meaningful and memorable experience, what I call good worship, right? So that's one of the most important reasons why I believe series are a good thing, because it gives us such a great focus and ways to remember the message beyond just that one-hit wonder on a Sunday morning. So one of the things we'll do on Sunday night is also begin to look at our own process and ask ourselves the question, what stresses us out about planning worship? Because what I hope that you'll go away with is not just ideas for the whole year, but ways to actually structure your process so that you have less stress around it throughout the year. And so we'll just touch on that on Sunday night. Wednesday, the closing session, will really be about, okay, you have all these plans. Now what do you do when you get home to keep this plan together, plan ahead process going? And also naming our dreams and desires for the design process. What would you like to have happen this year? And so we'll do a little bit of that dreaming on the first session Sunday night. So every session then on Monday and Tuesday, where we go through the liturgical year, will have 3 parts to it. And the first part I will do at the beginning of the session a little bit of theory about design. So getting some common language for our design process. This is going to just really turbo boost your team if you have common language, common time, common ways to see the design process and understand not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. So each session I will introduce you to another design term that I have found really helps us to worship deeply. And then I will go into the seasonal immersion, and I will go through a lot of different things, including examples. I'll show you more about that in just a moment. And then I'll set you to working with your team or alone or whatever you're doing so you can have concrete accomplishments. So those 3 things will be in each of the sessions: common language, possibilities for the season, and your concrete work. So let's just take a look at an example, say Advent Christmas, which is Monday morning. I will be starting with our human questions, that human longing that I talked about. And each season, I want us to just sort of dig into what are the deeply human pieces of this season? Does it address for Advent Christmas, that yearning for God's presence, the presence of the mysterious, something beyond the mundane, something bigger, something more, something planted and born within us. So that birthing metaphor can lead us to a question that is, what will the Spirit birth in this church? So not just seeing the narrative as a narrative, but as our narrative, our story. So what is yearning to be birthed in our church? And so I will steep us in those questions and help you start to use those to discern what path will we take in this Advent Christmas season. And then I will do just a little bit of highlights of the history of the development of the season, because it's fascinating. We'll talk about some of the various theories of computing the date of Christmas, that kind of thing. Not too much history. We won't spend a long time in it because it's interesting, but we need time to actually work. But sometimes the history of the development of a season can wake us up to a new kind of thematic thing. This especially happens in Lent, where we discover that it didn't start as a penitential season. It started as a season of preparation for baptism. So all of a sudden, that might give you an idea about how to approach it this year. So a little bit of history, and then I will go into the theological themes that have developed over time for the season. To sort of give you, several different, if you've talked about, let's say, Advent in terms of waiting and yearning and anticipation for several years, one of the things you might think about is, what other angle could we come at it this year? So maybe it is more about the narrative of hope, or the expectation of justice and peace, right? So a little different twist on it. So part of what you're doing in this planning retreat is not just planning ahead for this year, but you're also looking at the scope of, what have we done for the last few years? Are we in a rut of a certain sort of lens to look through this for this season? Do we need to get at something different theologically this year? Maybe because we just need to mix it up, or maybe because this year we are struggling with hope and peace, right? So context is everything. So I'll give you some groundwork theologically for you to begin to discern that. Then I'm going to take you through, or point you towards, some of the work that I have done with the Revised Common Lectionary and the Narrative Lectionary. And again, all of this material is in Worship Design Studio. So what you're going to be able to do is, I'm going to highlight things. And then when you start to work, if there's something you saw on the screen or that came out of my mouth that you want to go in and spend more time with, all of my lectionary materials that I have done are in the Worship Design Studio. And so you'll be able to just pull up that document and spend some deeper time with that. I will go through all of the different texts. The example slide that I have here is just one of the thematic directions that I saw coming out of the epistles. But I have looked at all four of the texts in the Revised Common Lectionary. So I've looked at the Hebrew text, the Psalms, the epistles, and the Gospels. The next slide here is what the gospel readings are, and I will sort of highlight that again. You will have time when you're working on your own to do a deep dive if you are using the lectionary. But I'm going to just introduce you to some of the things that is. So basically what I'm trying to do is give you the cliff notes to sort of give you like, oh, okay, we're on year A, it's Matthew, okay, and these are the stories. So you can take a look at them all together and then begin to conceive of what you're going to do. All right, so what I'm going to do then in each session is I'm going to show you examples of what I've done. This is the example for Advent Christmas for Lectionary Year A, and I'm just going to give you the short version of what those are to give you examples of, especially if you're new to creating series, if you're new to sensory-rich worship. It's interesting, at every retreat I have people who have studied with me for many years, and I have people who are there for the very first time. And so some of this may be new to you. And so I want to give you examples of what I've created so that you can really get some tangible, concrete examples of what you can do in your process. And you might decide that you want to do mine, right? And then you'll be way jump started. The narrative lectionary, again, I give you the cliff notes. We're in year 2 coming up in 2019-2020 for the narrative lectionary. So I'm going to give you the cliff notes, let you see at a glance what it is, and then I will show you what I have designed in the past around the narrative lectionary for year 2 as an example. And you'll have access in the Worship Design Studio to take a look more deeply into what that is. So I will share some of the other things with you. We have so many worship series in the Worship Design Studio, and again, whether you use them or not is completely up to you, but they are examples to help you see, oh, look at that kind of example of a direction. Oh, that gives me an idea about where we need to go. So I will be just pointing you briefly in the direction of some of the other series that we have. I will also be giving you some examples of our fully scripted series. So we have 2 different kinds of series in the Worship Design Studio. One we call DIY, and that is kind of like if you do Blue Apron or any of those meal delivery things where you get all the ingredients and then you cook it. That's kind of what our DIY is. We have the series, we have the description of every week, we have examples, we have ideas for every worship art for every week, but we don't put it together in a script for you. You do that. So that's kind of DIY, and we have lots of those. And then we have 4 years worth of the fully scripted series. And so those are ones where that's like delivery. You know, like if you don't want to even cook, you don't want to turn the oven on at all, you call for delivery, right? And then you just salt and pepper and season it the way you want to. And that's what our fully scripted series are. They come fully scripted in order of worship, and then you adapt. And I really highly recommend that everybody adapt for their context. So I'll just be giving you some ideas about what that is, and again, as examples. And so I'll be introducing you to past ones, but I will be introducing you to the new fully scripted series for this year. It's the 300th anniversary of the hymn Joy to the World. It's called Heaven and Nature Sing, 300 Years of Joy to the World. And it's, of course, centered around joy. And so Chuck Bell, if you've been to one of my retreats before with Chuck, you know how incredible Chuck is as a musician. He's going to be supporting us musically throughout. And Chuck just sang to me over the phone. This is how hot off the press it is. The original Threshold theme song for this Heaven and Nature Sing. He just sang it over the phone to me yesterday. So as you can see, we're still working on this series, but we're going to introduce you. You'll be the first ones to know what that's about and to see and hear and experience what that's about. So I'm very excited to do that. I will also be revealing plans for other fully scripted series that will come out throughout the year. So I'll also give you some out-of-the-box ideas, which means that for each season, I'm dreaming with you, how does worship relate to the rest of life, like outside the sanctuary walls? Whether that is within programs in your church, mission, evangelism, education, children's programs, youth, whatever, but also how can it extend beyond your walls to the community? And so, I'll be sort of sprinkling some ideas throughout around what you can do in these seasons and in some of our series as well to connect the inner life of the church to the outer worship of the church as well. Okay, so at the end of inspiring you and giving you all of this great information, I will be putting this slide up on the screen, and these are my favorite places for resource inspiration. So lectionary sites, the Bible Gateway where you can scriptural sites, Unsplash, Pinterest, Hymnary, all these places where these are the things I use when I am idea gathering. And so you will get to do that. You may spend the whole time just deciding what you're going to do. And if it's not one of our series, you'll be deciding a title. You'll be writing a little paragraph about what that is. You may be looking on unsplash.com, which is a great photography site, for some inspirational pictures. So you may spend your whole time doing that. Or you may know right away, oh, that's what we need to do You're going to decide to do it, and then you'll spend the rest of your planning time actually getting more into the weeds, which is more resource gathering and thinking about what songs are coming up for me around this, or what visuals, or how could we get this involved with our education or our mission, that kind of thing. So everybody works at their own pace. Everybody has a different way of working, and that's all good. And I'm going to be working the room. All right, I'm going to be working the room, coming and if you have a question or you want to bounce an idea off of me, I am, oh my gosh, this is what, like, I am an idea person. So you bounce something off of me and I'm just going to go to town because that's the way my brain works. It's a blessing and a curse. So I'm going to be working the room, but also working the room means if you're on live stream, I will be coming over and chatting and seeing if you've had questions, want to bounce something off. So doing it live with the live stream instead of the recordings has that added benefit of interacting with me. So I'd love if you did that, if you're able to do that during our dates and times. All right, so bring whatever resources you can't live without, right? Okay, so we're in a United Methodist Church, so you can probably get some hymnals there, so you wouldn't have to bring a hymnal. But if you use Glory to God, which is one of my favorite hymnals, it's a Presbyterian hymnal, but I recommend everybody have it. Upper Room Worship Book, Faith We Sing, whatever it is that you can't live without, bring that. I tend to use hymnary these days because all of these hymnals are indexed in that online resource, which is incredible. But if you have a Bible that you use, that you mark up, that you really want to have tangibly, bring that kind of thing with you so that you can have that as your resources. All right, friends. So Monday morning will be Advent, Christmas / Epiphany. Now, let me say this session is a little bit different than the rest of them. I will not be inviting you to leave the room to go work somewhere. I will be inviting you to stay in the room to work on Advent, Christmas, because I'm going to let you work for a little. I'm going to present about Advent, Christmas, have you work on that for a little while, and then I'm going to present a little bit about what I call Epiphany Plus, which is the season right after, so Epiphany through Ash Wednesday. And that's a different length every year because of the date of Easter. But I'm going to present a little bit there in that Monday morning session so that you can begin to think about what's after Advent, Christmas. So those of you, especially those of you who are Worship Design Studio members already, you might be looking in Worship Design Studio before you get there to kind of think about what you want to do for Advent, Christmas. So the time that you have to work on Advent, Christmas is more just jump right in rather than decide. And those of you who are not Worship Design Studio members who are going to be registered for the retreat, we're going to get you in next week. We're going to get you into Worship Design Studio so that your month starts then and you have a chance to get in there and learn how to maneuver around Worship Design Studio before you get there. And so you might take a look at the Advent, Christmas ideas just to give yourself a jump start, all right? Because Monday morning is packed because we do want to get to what comes after Advent, Christmas. And really, it is, I like to do it in the same session because the decision of what to follow Advent, Christmas with is an important decision, right? So they're not just separate because you have just done this journey. What is the logical next journey? Excuse me. Excuse me. All right, so that's Monday morning. Monday afternoon, so we eat lunch on site. Monday afternoon is Lent. And so again, we start at 1 o'clock. And so during lunch, you'll also have time to keep working on what you've been working on if you want to. And then during the afternoon session, starting at 1 o'clock, I will steep you in Lent, and you will have plenty of time to work on Lent because we're going to eat dinner at the church, and then we have a bus, or you can drive to, it's not far, the memorial for the next session, the Monday evening session, which will focus on themes of Holy Week. And this is one of the reasons why I did this in Oklahoma City. one of the reasons is that I've never done this retreat in the Midwest, so I wanted to give a chance for Midwest people who want to drive to the retreat to do that. And we have a lot of people coming from Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. So I'm super excited that this was made available closer to you, which is awesome. But also because of the memorial, the National Memorial Museum at Oklahoma City. It will be 25 years coming up this next year that the bombing happened at the federal building there. And it's one of the most beautiful memorials that I've ever experienced in my life. And I've always wanted to do something there. So we have gotten permission to have our session there on Monday night. And you will get to, I'm paying for entrance for everybody to go and see the museum first. And then we'll be outside when the sun sets, we'll be outside and we will do our session. And it's experiential session around this memorial. And not just about the memorial, but Holy Week can be a time where we talk about crying out against injustice, violence, and working for peace and reconciliation and nonviolence. And I tell you, the events of the last week have made it even more important that we highlight this. And it will be powerful to highlight this at this place where there was a mass act of violence. So the chamber ensemble from the church, led by my friend Robert Fazol, he's going to kill me for butchering his name, is going to be there and singing with us and for us, which is going to be spectacular. So I'm very excited about this. We will be Facebook Living this, so those of you on the live stream will not miss out on this. The only way we can live stream it is on Facebook Live, so you'll want to be sure you have access to that, and you'll join us there. Fazol, F-A-S-O-L, where the question was Robert's last name, F-A-S-O-L. Okay, so that will be Monday night. Tuesday morning, you have the morning off because Monday will be packed, right? So you can sleep in or you can get up and you can continue planning. A lot of people use that free morning just to continue working on Advent, Epiphany, and Lent, getting more things done. And getting more ideas. So you can come to the church early and work, or work at your hotel or at a coffee shop or whatever you want to do. We will not have breakfast or lunch there because you are working on your own, but there are plenty of course, places all around to eat. And then 1 o'clock, we will come back together to do Easter, the Easter season, and Pentecost. And that will happen for the first part of the session in their amazing sanctuary. We will be in their center, their contemporary worship space around tables most of the time. But for this session, one tiny bit of it, we will be in the sanctuary. And Robert is going to play that organ. He's a world-class organist. We're going to get to hear that organ, and we will talk about Eucharist and how to make communion special when we do these series, and how can we create more participatory action in the sanctuary, in traditional sanctuaries and in all worship spaces, but especially getting to be in this traditional sanctuary and talk about that, talk about processionals and that kind of thing. So very exciting, and that will lead us then back into the other room around our tables to work, to do more about Easter season and work on that. We will have dinner on site, that's provided in your meal plan, and then Tuesday evening will be about ordinary time. We will talk about how do you deal with this half of the year that is ordinary time, and how you might discern what are the things that we need to talk about in that part of the year. It's a great time of the year when we're not focused so much on a particular narrative within the scriptural story to think thematically about what do we as a congregation need to grow in spiritually or deepen spiritually. And so we will be talking a lot about many, many ideas, and what you'll be doing basically is making a wish list, making a big long list of possibilities so that when you come back to discerning what you're going to do during that second half of the year, you will have already a list of things that will have been working in the background for you. And you'll be able to make decisions at the beginning of next year clearly so that you can keep this plan ahead kind of thing. We're just going to give you a ton of ideas. We're also going to talk about that night, we're going to talk more about visual and media arts and what they bring to the riches that they bring. Of course, we'll be talking about that throughout, but we will specifically, that will be our bit of theory we talk about that night. All right, friends, so to reiterate, in 3 days, you're going to have about 16 hours of structured experiential learning split up in these ways that I've talked about. Ideas for every season, guided help to do your planning, and then you're going to have uninterrupted hours of actual planning and getting concrete work done. Woohoo! So I hope you're getting excited about this. Here's what you're going to end up going home with, and that is a page, at least a page for every season, every liturgical season that's going to talk about what's the title, what's the description, what are some ideas we have for symbols, what are some actual ideas that we have for music, and at least a page of ideas. It may look like this. We're going to give you a sheet that looks like this that sort of just helps to prompt you, oh, go home with at least this much, right? Or you might decide to create your own Word document with, start to really create your own, what I call a synopsis document that has a description of the whole thing. Or you might actually use our design app in the Worship Design Studio to create what I call an inspiration page, which has photos that really get at the essence of the message, that has your series title, that has a scripture fragment, that has your, what I call a synopsis. And so that is something that you will definitely go home with at least that much. And you're going to be able to share with others in our final session. You're going to be able to cross-pollinate. So not only are you going to go home with your ideas, but on Wednesday, you're going to get a chance to share with other churches what you're doing and hear what they're doing, and get inspired even more to do that, because we really want to create a system of support where you feel like, even when you're not in that room, or chatting with other churches online if you're in the live stream, even when you're not physically with other people or virtually with other people, that throughout the year you feel their presence and you feel my support, helping you continue to be excited about this work of worship design. So the design process that I teach, that I wrote about extensively in my book, Think Like a Filmmaker, Sensory-Rich Worship Design for Unforgettable Messages, looks like this. And really the visionary retreat is that very first part of the process. So that's what I'm guiding you through. Is it's so incredibly beneficial to articulate a vision, decide on a vision, be able to articulate that to the team so that the work that you do to prepare is right on target and there's no wasted time where you're not sure what you're doing. So that visionary retreat is one of the most concrete, beneficial ways that you can begin this liturgical year. So reminding you that you have access to a lot of our worship series in the Worship Design Studio. And so if along the way you decide to do, let's say, one of our DIY series where you have ideas for every Sunday, even though we haven't put them together in an order of worship, you're going to actually leave the retreat on that series having gotten done the synopsis writing, because we've already done that for you, and you might just be adapting it, and the brainstorm and resource gathering. You're going to look at what we've suggested. You're going to say, oh yeah, we couldn't do that. Oh, but I love that. Oh, we could do that, but let's change that, right? So that will be the work that you'll do at the tables, right? So you'll be through a ton of that, right? And you'll add your own ideas. So you'll have that. Or if you do one of our fully scripted series, you'll be all the way through this design process, through the scripts. And what you'll be doing at your table is saying, okay, this is how we can do this. We might have to change that. You'll be getting into some very concrete things because you'll be so far down in the process because we've jump-started you. So that's kind of, all of these are valid. It may be that you use our scripts for Advent, Christmas because you want to just have something really concrete to do. And then you may decide, for Lent, I really want to do my own series. And so we're going to start from scratch for that one, right? Or for Easter season. So it could be a combination, and all that is valid and wonderful. All right, so again, August 18 through 21. I cannot wait to see those of you who are going to be with me live. Very excited to see you on Sunday night. I know that some of you, there's occasionally people who don't make it on Sunday night because they want to be at church Sunday morning, and then their flights get in too late, or their flights, get late. We pray that you have really smooth travel, but if you miss Sunday night, don't worry about it. It is that foundational groundwork kind of thing. And you can see the slides that we had and go over those if you want to. You'll have the recording later. Don't worry too much about getting too wound up if you end up missing Sunday night. We love for you to be there because it is really the very deeply spiritual part of getting yourself in the mindset, right? So I'm hoping most of you can get there by Sunday night. And those of you who are going to do the live stream, I really hope that you can do it live with us because I'd love to interact with you. But of course, you'll have the recordings and you can create your own retreat at your own pace. All right, so reminding you, if you're not registered yet and you want to do the live stream, do it now. Click on that link that Jenna put up there. Actually, Jenna, if you could put the link in there again so they can click right on it. And if you're watching the recording of this webinar, I'll put that link in the description of the YouTube video that you're watching right now. So look at the description and we'll have that link there. But do it before Friday so that you can get this great deal. This is the best deal we put out there. That's why it's a limited time, because you're going to have access to a whole lot of things, and we want to make sure that we really give you the opportunity, if traveling and being there live is not in your budget, which I know it's not for everyone, that you have a way to access it. So do that now. And for those of you who are going to be on live or in the space live, our schedule, as I've laid it out, Sunday night dinner at 6. So you can come, I think 4:35, we will have registration ready. So you could come, anytime after that. We'll have dinner at 6. We'll have our session from 7 to 9. You will get good sleep. Monday morning, we'll have our 9 to noon session, our lunch, which is part of the meal plan. Dinner is also part of that meal plan that you have signed on to. Monday afternoon, the session, then dinner is part of the meal plan, because then we go right to the Oklahoma City Memorial Museum for the tour and our experiential session there in that outside memorial part. Tuesday morning is free for you to do whatever you want to. Tuesday afternoon, 1 p.m. session. And you'll have all that afternoon after I present to work on Easter season. Tuesday dinner, part of the meal plan. Tuesday night session, 7 to 9. And then Wednesday morning session will start at 8:30 instead of 9, because we have to be out of there around 11 so people can get to their flights. So that is our schedule, and it will be over before you know it. It's amazing how quickly it goes, but it's amazing how much you get done in that time, because it's structured, and if you follow the structure, you will have plans for the whole year when you go home. So the links to go register, we have some seats live in the event space available. So go ahead and do that if you can, and of course the live streams. Well, I hope this has given you a little idea about what you're about to embark on and get you excited. If the rest of your team has not seen this, I'm gonna make the recording and we'll get that out and send that out to you so that you can send that on to the rest of your team who is coming, or those who are gonna be joining you on the live stream. If they are, so send this recording on to them so that they can get situated and know what is going on. I think if they watch this, it'll get you all primed and ready. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Take care, and I will see you soon in just 11 short days. Okay, thanks.